What's going on, everyone? I hope you all had an amazing weekend, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. We're set for an exciting week in the market. The SPY is very close to its all-time highs, but it has definitely been moving in a way that is choppier than normal. Looking at the market from Friday, around 59% of stocks in the S&P 500 finished in the green. And for this week, we have a couple exciting events lined up, like a Jerome Powell speech. Yet again, we have some more exciting earnings, and we have a couple interesting news events that might shake the market up a little bit. So let's make this week a great one, and let's jump right into it.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Mike, the SPY is actually pretty close to its all-time high, so I actually want to go out here on a daily chart, and we can go back and look and zoom in a little bit and see where that all-time high is. There's a lot of resistance around this area, so definitely watch it this week, right around 524 to 525. If we end up breaking out above there, obviously there will probably be a lot of bullish activity, and you'll probably hear about it all over the place. That'll make for a great headline, right? So definitely be ready if it does break out, but I'll say this, with all the chop the past few months, I would not be surprised if the SPY started to consolidate a bit up here, right? It's a major resistance, and we're not getting any big wowing factors pushing us up through at the moment. Although this week, we are going to have the man, the myth, the legend, Powell, speaking once again, Mike, and he's speaking with the Dutch central bank president. I want to say that again, Dutch central bank president. You guys can see it on the chart right here, 10 a.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. That'll be pretty big. Now, it's an annual general meeting, the Foreign Bankers Association in Amsterdam. So keep that in mind. This is not going to be an FOMC meeting. It's not going to be anything where Powell specifically has to talk about the U.S. economy or anything, although it will probably be brought up. So definitely watch out Tuesday, Mike. Anytime Powell speaks, it brings in a lot of volatility. Plus, with SPY around highs, it's going to be extremely crucial.
No doubt about that. So definitely pay attention on Tuesday around 10 a.m. Eastern time. So like you said, whenever the man, the myth, the legend speaks, you just have to pay attention because he has his way with words, right? But we also have some other exciting events lined up for the week, like inflation data 1 hour before the market opens on Wednesday. And I would actually say this event will be the most important event of the week.
Yeah, I would too. Anytime we talk about inflation lately, it's going to be a big event for the market, whether it's CPI or PMI. There's a bunch of different inflation numbers that people look at. And whenever you see the actual inflation rates and the core inflation rate, that is the big number that people always are looking at, right? Last time it came in right around 3.8%. I'm really watching for that core inflation rate to come down a little bit, Mike. Looks like they're forecasting it to fall a little bit, although the year-over-year regular inflation rate, they're actually forecasting to stay right around the same. So we'll see what ends up happening there with inflation. We always know that plays a big role on the economy, and looking at US 10Y and some of the yields lately, they've been dipping. So that this will probably play a huge role on yields this week too.
You know it. And then we also can't forget about the exciting earnings lineup for the week as well. We can see on Tuesday before open, we have Alibaba set to report. And then we also have a handful of other Chinese stocks set to report Thursday before open. So it'll be a big week for those stocks. They have been booming over the past couple weeks and months. So make sure to keep an extra close eye on them. And we can see in other parts of the week, we have a couple other earnings sprinkled in, like Cisco on Wednesday after close, Walmart before open on Thursday, AMAT after close on Thursday, and a handful of other ones.
Yeah, I actually like C Limited quite a bit on Tuesday in pre-market, ticker symbol SE. I think that's going to be a pretty fun one here this week. And then we also have Home Depot, which will be big. I really think that Walmart, for me, is definitely the most important because they'll kind of show how consumers are spending. I'm sure that there'll be a lot of talk about consumers whenever Walmart reports. They might say, consumers scaling back with inflationary pressure or etc. So I'm really curious how they end up saying. But yeah, those China stocks are going to be pretty big this week, Mike, and we all know how China stocks like to gap up and down. Definitely watch for the gaps on BABA Tuesday. I'll have my eyes on that. And with how much it's been running up the past couple weeks, Mike, if BABA does start to have a good gap up, that would be awesome to like solidify this breakout of this range. Like it was really stuck between 70 and 78 to $80. If it could get a good like solid breakout here, it'd be the like best confirmation up out of this range.
Exactly. And when you're looking at BABA on a chart like that, you can see that the move over the past couple of weeks has been pretty big. But when you zoom out a lot more, you can see that this move over the past couple of weeks is like nothing. Like the further you zoom out, the obviously less significant this short-term move appears to be, given how much the stock has fallen over the past couple of years. So I think that's very interesting as well. But kind of like you said with BABA, it's like if they could have a nice move up on earnings, that can kind of like add a lot more fuel to the fire for this recent uptrend. But at the same time, if this is just another disappointing earnings report, it can kind of kill some of the momentum that's already there.
Yeah, it really could. And I'll say this on a charting standpoint, I'm loving the way BABA looks down here. You know, it's breaking out of that range. I love the way it came down over the past couple days and actually tested support at $78. That's awesome. It used that previous resistance as support there. It's kind of confirming off. Now, obviously, I'm not saying to trade earnings based off of the chart here, but if we do get a good earnings move, we could see like a good continuation play or something like that after. But there has been a lot of big money plays, Mike, on the China stocks lately. Whether we look at BABA or FXI or others, they've been doing very well. So it's going to be awesome if they continue to blast off like this.
Yeah, like these Chinese stocks have a lot to gain, but they have to prove themselves first. Like they're at such historically low levels. They have a lot of big money plays flowing in. The momentum is starting to shift more and more in their favor, and they're starting to just move in, a better way. But it's up to them to see if they could pull through on this earnings report. So I'm actually I'm looking forward to earnings this week, especially with BABA, JD, and even Baidu.
Yeah, and I think that those China stocks are so interesting right now because they have like a mind of their own. They're not really correlated to the SPY. We have a custom stats thing that we always look at here in the bottom right corner. We can see that there's a moderate correlation to the SPY with BABA. So that's interesting. You go to Baidu and some of the others, the correlation could get even worse, which to me is a good thing, especially in the short term, because the SPY has been so choppy. Now, I know that a lot of people out there are going to say, well, Tom, the SPY was ripping last week. Why are you saying it's choppy? Like, I get it. The past couple weeks, like literally like 1 to 2 weeks, it's been pretty good, right? There's been some pretty good solid uptrends. But as we can see here, Mike, on this chart, there's a pretty interesting statistic given the gap ups and gap downs on SPY lately. And apparently we're at one of the highest levels over the past like 24 years, 25 years, whenever you do a 30-day rolling total. And pretty much what this shows is like if the SPY gaps up in the morning and it closes red, that's like how many times this has happened, right, over the past 30 days. And it's happened around 15 times, Mike. So half the days the SPY's gapped up and then closed down in the red. Like that's not the best sign. But I will say at the end of last week was a lot better.
Exactly. So, it's very interesting, though. It's because when you have a market that starts up in a bullish and positive way, but it doesn't have enough strength to sustain that positivity, it's certainly not a great sign. Is it a horrible sign? No, but it definitely is not good. And what it is ultimately showing is that the amount of buying pressure that we're seeing, like, during market hours is not that strong, right? We have the smart money and institutional money propping the market up in after hours and pre-market. But by the time the market opens, that same level of buying activity is nowhere to be found because, when you see a stat like you showed where we're seeing all of these gap ups, but half of the past 30 days, the market is finishing down on the day, it's certainly not a good sign. So I think the biggest thing to take away from something like this is that the way in which the market's moving and the overall sentiment has changed. That does not mean the market's going to fall off a cliff and lose 20% of its value in a week, but what it does mean is that as we head toward all-time highs, which we are right now at SPY, you just have to be a little bit more skeptical than usual because the fact that we're at basically all-time highs right now is not the same market that we were in when SPY was at all-time highs about a month ago, right? Or a little bit, a month and a half ago. The sentiment's a little bit different and it is more choppy.
Yeah, and I know that like a lot of people are going to look at maybe Thursday and Friday and say like there was a huge move on SPY to the upside there, and yes, there was, but just keep in mind that things have been changing. You know, we go back and we look at inflation data sticking a little higher. We go back, we look at the prospect of rate cuts getting pushed out further and further, like they're just not, obviously they're looking to pause for longer now, and that's been really what's been driving the market down here over the past couple months. So and then of course this week, Mike, we have Jerome Powell, we have the earnings, we even have inflation data, so that's all going to come into play with SPY right here at the high. But one thing that is interesting, and I know that we're going to talk a lot about inflation this week, is the overall pressure it puts on consumers, right? And one stock actually did very well Friday as they're trying to, I guess, ease some of that pressure for consumers. That's McDonald's. We usually don't see big moves like this with McDonald's. They were up 2.63% on Friday, Mike. It looks like they're actually trying to copy Wendy's a little bit and come out with a $5 meal deal. It's going to be pretty good. You can get McChicken, McDoubles with 4-piece nuggets, fries, and a drink for $5. Sounds pretty good if they do come out with this. And like it says here in the article on CNBC, of course, it comes at a time when low-income consumers are starting to pull back on spending, particularly at fast food brands. So that's pretty bad that McDonald's has to start doing this, Mike, to get some of these people's business. It shows the pressure on consumers there, but also it's just cool to see McDonald's moving here in the short term too. So, it's just an interesting piece of news here, I think, for the week, given how big of a company McDonald's is.
Yep, and then another thing too is like, as we see some consumers pull back, that does present a pretty interesting opportunity in the stock market, because if McDonald's can really make this like a thing and it, works well for them, McDonald's can kind of act as a stock to be more resilient in a time where other companies might slow down. It is pretty rare to see McDonald's stock actually move off a piece of news, just given how slow and, I guess you could say boring the stock moves. But intraday on Friday, the stock moved in a really great way right when the news came out, but it even had a strong close as well, which tells you that the market actually sees value in this new release, so to say. But either way, keep a close eye on McDonald's, because I feel like this can end up working pretty well for them. And, the market is pretty optimistic about it, assuming, or, just looking at the way the stock moved on Friday.
Yeah, that was an insane move, Mike, and the volume intraday was crazy too, and I really like what you said about them trying to become like a resilient company during these times, and we see that happen sometimes where companies will take advantage of situations like this. I've seen like Dollar Tree and other places like that, for example, during times of high inflation, also like try to take advantage of things like that. So very interesting, Mike, and McDonald's, how could you go wrong, right? One of the beloved stocks of the stock market, right? Whenever you go back on a daily, they are just so consistent over the years. Although, like you said, kind of slow and choppy here, and especially the past couple years, haven't really been doing anything. So maybe this can start to get them out of this little rut they've been in.
I'm excited to see how this works for him. So either way, we'll keep a close eye on McDonald's, but let's jump right into some setups and predictions for the week. A stock I'm watching pretty closely is Coinbase, and it is to the downside. So Coinbase has been struggling a little bit over the past couple of weeks. It had its high of around like $283 back towards the end of March, and since that point, it has been fading. It is now at the crucial $200 support level, and it is it's getting pretty close to it. So this is actually like the second time it has tested this level in just like a 2-week span, which is not necessarily a great sign. So I will be watching this one for a potential break below that level and continuation lower. But as with all setups, you want to see consistent bearish price action. If the stock gaps up tomorrow and starts running to the upside, there's no point in fighting the flows.
Yeah, looking for a $200 breakdown should be pretty big. That's a huge psychological level on the chart, and I could see it having a pretty good move if we do see Coinbase continue to break down there. I'll definitely have my eyes on that one to the downside. With my first play, I'm looking at a bit of a weird one, Mike, and it is Qualcomm to the upside. Since their earnings, I actually love the way Qualcomm is held up, and they're sitting right around resistance. But if they could end up breaking above like 184, then I will go ahead and look at calls this week. They've been consolidating up here, and I'm looking for a nice push push up through resistance and continuation. When you go to that daily chart, they've been doing very well over the past couple of years, and with those good earnings, I'm just looking for that key breakout to come in. And with stocks staying so high in the short term, I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up breaking.
All right, sounds good. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is SLV, and this is basically an ETF that follows silver prices. Silver has been booming over like the past week or so, and even gold prices are right around their record highs. So that's great to see, as precious metals tend to move together. But either way, gold and silver have been uptrending in a pretty strong way for the past couple months, and SLV is starting to build some really nice momentum to it as well. So either way, I'm watching SLV to the upside for the week. I definitely like the recent price action, and its recent highs are around $27.23, and as long as it keeps like this constant pressure on its highs, that show that money is continuously being pumped into it, which is exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, that big money play was pretty sus last week, Mike. We saw the big money enter on Tuesday, and literally on Thursday, SLV broke out of that little range and got all the way up to $26 by Friday. Like, what happened there? Like, even if you go to like a 5-minute chart, that move up was pretty insane Thursday. So I'll definitely have my eyes on silver this week. It's a very interesting metal here in the short term. With my next stock, I'm looking at Microsoft here, and I'm looking at key resistance for another breakout opportunity, kind of like Qualcomm. Although just be wary if we do see a bounce off resistance. Obviously, there's no play, and you could almost switch to the downside at that point. But I'm looking at the book map on Microsoft here. There's the 415 and 416 resistances coming into play. You can see on the chart, right, where those shares were stacked up on Friday and subsequent days. So I will definitely be watching that 416 area. If we see a good breakout above that with Microsoft, then I will look at calls, and you can see the buyers stacked up right there at 416. So keep in mind that's 13,000 shares that this is showing. And I do want to clarify, I think I just said buyers. That is sellers actually overhead up there. The buyers would be underneath. So just keep that in mind. Let's watch this nice resistance on Microsoft, Mike. If there's a breakout, then I think there could be opportunity, but definitely make it break first. There's a lot of stocks right now at resistance. We don't want to get stuck in a rejection.
All right, sounds good. Well, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have ExxonMobil to the upside.
Yeah, ZOM here in the short term has been starting to come back a little bit. If it can get back above 118.50, which is intraday resistance, then up calls.
All right, with the next one, we have SMH to the downside.
Yeah, SMH, a semiconductor ETF, moved up Friday. If it moves under 222, I really like that support there on SMH. If it can break under 222, then up puts.
All right, and then with the last one, we have Netflix for both directions.
Yeah, with Netflix here, I'm really watching that 605 support. That's going to be pretty crucial in the short term. And then as resistance for a good breakout opportunity, look at 612. That's a big resistance / support from the past couple weeks.
Sounds good. So we have the upside level for calls. We have the downside level for puts on Netflix. Don't forget about the downside levels on SMH, and then the upside levels on ExxonMobil. Either way, these three stocks are on watch for potential day trades tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels Tom listed. We want to see breakthroughs of the levels and then continuations in those directions. But it's now about that time for today's $1.5 million big money trade of the day. And we are looking at ticker symbol WRBY. So basically on Friday, the big money put around $1.5 million into the WRBY 15 strike calls that expire on January 17th of 2025. These call options are right at the money. They have a decent amount of time to them, and the stock has been moving in a pretty good way in the short term as it popped up off of earnings. We could see by looking at this one on like a more zoomed out basis, it has been channeling for quite a while between like the $10 level all the way up to, you could say, like the $19 level to $17. Like, it's just been chopping around for quite a while now, and it is finally trying to break above that chop zone. And the momentum in the short term definitely isn't bad, and I think it's interesting to see the big money coming in right here. I like how the call options are right at the money because it, makes them higher quality as opposed to if they were like the 20 strikes. But either way, I think this is a very interesting big money play, and I'm excited to see how it does.
Yeah, thank God it's not the 20 strikes. That would scare me on this one, Mike. I really am glad it's the 15 strike, and it has a little bit of time out to January too. So, if it does chop around a little bit, I still think that by January, there's still good potential for this one to at least get maybe to the upper edges of this range, like maybe the 18 to 20 mark, like you mentioned. I could see that over the next few months. So definitely keep your eyes on WRBY. This is definitely one of the most choppiest stocks I've seen, Mike. And the craziest thing with this is like, these aren't very small chops either. Like if we actually go in here and we look, like a lot of these little uptrends here are pretty big. Like there's a 30% uptrend there within just a couple months. Then it dipped a lot. Then it moves up 50%. Then it dips. Then just a month later, it moves up another 20%, right? Another 30%. It's like, Mike, like what's going on with this stock? It goes up or down 30% every couple months. So I'll definitely have my eyes on it.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, keep a close eye on this one because it's just been chopping around for so long, and it even like a lot of volume has came in recently as well. So good stuff there, but looking at the week ahead, Tom, it's set to be a pretty exciting one. We have Jerome Powell speaking. We have a lot of exciting earnings. We have the market right around all-time highs. We have that weird gap up and finish down phenomenon going on right now. So that's pretty interesting, but I think this week will be a good one. Last week was a little bit more choppy than usual, but we have some events coming in to hopefully make the price action a little bit more crazy and kind of like it was over the past couple weeks and months.
Yeah, and that inflation rate's going to be big next week too. And, we even have McDonald's coming out here with some news, right? It's always weird when you get McDonald's moving. But, yeah, definitely have these stocks on watch for the week. I do like a lot of these momentum plays here too in the short term. I think that the ones that we mentioned, Mike, like, for example, Qualcomm, Coinbase, SLV, and Microsoft, I think those will have a lot of potential for the week. So let's go. Let's make it a good one. And hopefully these events get us some nice volatility coming in. I want to see a good breakout with SPY, Mike. I don't want to see any more chop here.
There we go. But yeah, like you said, let's make this week a good one. As always, of course, have stops in place, follow the money, trade with reasonable position sizes, and, don't force setups if the setup isn't great. There's nothing wrong with sitting on the sidelines until you see a grade A setup. But before we close out, I want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Center, in the Stocked Up trading floor. They had a great play on Friday with Amazon, but they've just been a great member of Stocked Up for some time now. So huge shout out to Center. Thank you so much for all of your support, and thanks for being a great member of the community. But last but not least, if you are new to our videos, consider demolishing that subscribe button to get them recommended to you more often. Basically, we post all the time. We cover charts you won't find anywhere else, all the important news, events, earnings, and everything else you need to know about the market in usually like 20 to 25 minutes or less. So consider joining the Stocked Up crew and subscribing. And besides that, guys, let's make this week a great one.